Hi, my name is Carole Baskin, and I am the founder and CEO of Big Cat Rescue, and you are watching Cat Chat. Today's guest is the director, and I don't have my notes in front of me, the director of animal care at Black Beauty Ranch, and her name is Noelle Almrud. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Almrud.
Almrud. Well, thank you so much for joining us, because I know you guys have been so busy there.
Yes, it's been a crazy few weeks. We're building new enclosures and new habitats and getting ready for winter, and so it's been very busy. But thank you for having me here today. This is really exciting. I'm happy to talk with everybody today.
You sent me a bunch of very nice pictures, and we will show those a little bit later on. But you are kind of living the dream. People ask me all the time, how can I get a job working with big cats? And I know you work with all kinds of animals there, but can you tell our audience that are thinking, man, I would really love to do that with my life, what your path was from the time that you were a kid and first realized that, man, I love animals and I want to work with them, to where you ended up in this job?
Sure. And it's actually kind of a funny story. I started out not working with animals. I think most of us that are involved with this, obviously animals are our passion. But I started out in the commercial mortgage banking field. I graduated from college and had no clue what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. You know, I thought, what am I going to be when I grow up? So I worked at as a loan analyst and property inspector for a commercial mortgage banking company. And I traveled all over the country doing site visits and collateral inspections and boring financial stuff. And I was actually on a business trip at San Diego, and I always tried to do something fun with all of my trips. After I was done, I would go to a museum, I'd go to a zoo, I'd go, just do something fun. And so I was actually at the San Diego Zoo, and I was standing in front of the giraffe enclosure, and I thought, I would be happier shoveling poo than doing what I'm doing today. So I quit my job. I went back to school, got a second degree in wildlife and fishery sciences from Texas A&M University, and just started from the ground up. Literally started, doing volunteering, getting paid $8 an hour just to be around animals. And then I just kind of worked my way up at different organizations. I started off at Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation in Central Texas. They're a wildlife sanctuary as well as a rehabilitation center, and worked with big cats and primates there, and then transferred to Black Beauty about 2.5 years ago. And I've never regretted it. Went back to school to make less money, but I've never regretted making that change.
I love Lynn Cooney from Wildlife Rescue and Rehab, and I really wanted to have her on the show, but they have some challenges out there with their internet connection, so we haven't been able to do that yet. But can you tell us a little bit how it's like to be a volunteer there? Because you're handling, I'm thinking it's like in the magnitude of hundreds, if not thousands, of wildlife that come in need of rescue and rehabilitation and release.
I started off just as a staff member. I had volunteered elsewhere while I was in school, so they hired me just as a staff member. And so you come in, and during baby season, they literally have 7,000 animals that come through there a year. And during the summer, when you've got all the babies, that's the most challenging time of year. And so you're literally putting your blood, sweat, and tears into the work that you do, and it's so rewarding, and Lynn Cooney is just amazing. She's kind of been my mentor, and I've always listened to everything she said, because she just knows so much, and she's just been so helpful in developing me into my full potential. And so, after a couple years, they promoted me to intern supervisor, and then animal care manager, and then director of animal care for the last 5 years that I was there. So just really enjoyed working there with all the different animals and the people. And we would have so many interns that would come through. We had a really large intern program, and it was neat to see all these kids come in after they graduated from college, and we could kind of mentor them and kind of develop them into understanding our philosophies. The sanctuary philosophy is so much different than, say, a zoo philosophy. Not necessarily one's right or wrong, but just knowing that we wanted to instill those values that animals are to be protected and respected. And so that was just amazing at Lynn's facility.
One of the things that I credit Lynn with is our rehab program, because we only rehab bobcats. And we have done that since I was a teenager, but we had never rehabilitated and released orphaned bobcat kittens because we didn't feel like we could teach them everything they needed to know about being bobcats. But she told us a story about how she had rehabilitated a kitten, sent it out, and that a couple years later that same kitten came back with kittens of her own. And it was like, that was the inspiration we needed to say, okay, we can do this too. So all of the bobcats baby bobcats that have been rehabilitated since here are due to Lynn Cooney and her words of wisdom on how to do that. So you were...
Oh, that's an awesome story. Yeah, and that was so exciting.
You were how old when you were standing in front of this giraffe enclosure?
30. I think I was 30. Yeah. So it was maybe late 20s, earlier. Yeah, it was in. Yeah.
So you can probably appreciate this. I know whenever I see our interns come in, most of them are in their late teens or early 20s. And I think, man, these kids are so far ahead of where I was because I didn't start the sanctuary until I was 30. And I look at them and I think, man, it's just so exciting that these people already understand how this is so important and are dedicating their lives to this. So I would imagine you've had that same kind of experience in seeing these interns that came in that worked with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so rewarding because, the ones that came in when I first started, which was in 2004, some of them have already gone to vet school. They've graduated. They're veterinarians. Some of them went back to get their masters or PhDs. Some of them are working in other animal sanctuaries or zoos all over the country. So, I kind of feel, I don't have any kids of my own, but I kind of feel like a proud mama because I get to stay in touch with all these interns and take credit, a little bit of credit, just a tiny bit of credit that maybe I help them a little bit in what they're doing now. So, and the majority are all still working with wildlife, whether it be exotic birds or big cats or primates. Most of them are still doing it, and that's just so exciting and so rewarding.
Definitely rewarding. So you went from wildlife rescue and rehab then directly to Black Beauty. Was that your next job?
Yes. After I'd been there about 7 years, and I really felt that I needed to relocate. I was doing about a 3-hour daily commute from Austin to the facility and back, and it was just killing me. And so, my husband and I decided to relocate to East Texas, and little bitty small town, which we love. After growing up in big cities, it's nice to be in a small town. And so we relocated to Black Beauty Ranch about 2.5 years ago. And we've been growing and expanding ever since, and it's really exciting to be a part of this journey.
When you were a kid, did you read the book Black Beauty?
Actually, I hate to admit it, but no, and I still have not actually read the book. I keep thinking, I even went out and bought a copy of it, but I still haven't actually sat down and read it. And Cleveland Amory, who was our founder, he's the one that bought the property and started the sanctuary. He even wrote a book called Ranch of Dreams, and it's a book specifically about the sanctuary. And I'm ashamed to admit that I haven't even gotten through that book yet either, too. So I've got some reading to do this Christmas, that's for sure.
Well, can you tell us some about the history? Because I know this has been around for a very long time.
Yes. It's one of the largest and most diverse sanctuaries in the country. It was founded in 1979 by Cleveland Amory, who was an author and animal advocate. And he had founded the Fund for Animals, which is an animal advocacy organization, back in the late 60s. And so the ranch was founded about 10 years after that. And it started out just a small sanctuary, about 80 acres. And it started off as a horse rescue, hence the name Black Beauty. And he started by rescuing burros out of the Grand Canyon. The Bureau of Land Management wanted to go in and eradicate all the burros in the Grand Canyon, and he actually, with his own money, went in and airlifted them out of the Grand Canyon and brought them to the sanctuary and adopted the ones that he could. The ones that weren't adoptable, they lived their life out on the ranch. So over the years, we've expanded to take in, over 40, close to 50 different species, and we've purchased more and more land as we've gone on. We currently have over 1,300 acres on our property.
Nice.
And all the animals just live out here on the ranch, and you know, our job is to protect and respect them.
Oh, how wonderful. Yeah, I've been out to, you have a sanctuary that's operated by the fund out in Ramona. I always refer to it as the Ramona Ranch, but I don't know what you guys actually call it. And they have a bunch of bobcats out there, which I love. I love bobcats. How many of these?
Yes. We actually, sanctuaries, yes. We have 5 that are, well, let me back up. So the Fund for Animals eventually merged with the Humane Society of the United States, HSUS, back in 2005. And so we are currently kind of run by both organizations. We get some of our funding through both organizations. They help us out with the accounting, the payroll, all that kind of stuff goes through the Humane Society of the United States. And the Fund for Animal and HSUS has 5 animal care centers across the country. So there's Black Beauty, which I consider the flagship of all of our sanctuaries. Of course, I'm going to think it's the best one, but they're all great. We have a wildlife rehabilitation center in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We have a rehab center at the Cape Cod, Massachusetts. There is an equine sanctuary in Oregon called the Duchess Sanctuary, and then the Wildlife Center in Ramona, California, which does rehab and then has some permanent residents. They have several bobcats. They have an elderly lion named Samson, and they have a pygmy hippo named Hannah that still live there. The goal eventually is, I think, to transfer the bobcats here to Black Beauty. In fact, we currently have we had 2 bobcats, Bob and Little Boy, and Bob recently passed away, and so we had Little Boy who was by himself, and so we just took in 2 of their bobcats. They sent them to us, a male and a female, and so they've just cleared quarantine, and we're starting to do an introduction process with those 2. So we're excited to have all 3 of them together so that Little Boy has some friends again.
You know, I was really surprised when I was out in Ramona to see a bunch of bobcats living in a cage together that were actually getting along. And part of it, I'm sure, is because it was a very large space, which you need, obviously, if you're going to be putting cats together. But I'm curious, your introduction protocols, how do you work that for adult bobcats who don't know each other? Because I'm afraid to do it.
Yeah, it can be challenging, and I think having the space is key. I know at Wildlife Rescue we had actually 4 acres dedicated to our bobcat enclosure, and 3 acres was the main yard, and then we had 2 half-acre side yards. One we used for our elderly or geriatric bobcats, and then the other one was an introduction yard. And so we would put them in, new bobcats we would put in that introduction yard and let them be fence to fence for a few days to a few weeks, depending on what we were seeing as far as aggression wise. And then basically you have a leap of faith and you open the doors and you let them out, and they have enough space to get away from each other if they need to. But for the most part, they really just wanted to be by themselves or pair up with one other, but they would leave each other alone. They never seemed to bother each other once they got to know each other. With our current situation, it's a smaller yard. It's still a good sized yard for 3 bobcats, but we have 2 separate lockouts or separation area. And so right now we're just doing fence to fence contact with them and rotating through the main yard so that everybody can pick up each other's scent and mark all they want, and then they can see each other through the fence. And there's some warning growls, but that's to be expected. But there's no real aggression. Nobody's trying to attack each other through the fence. And so after we do that for a few days, we'll probably put the smaller, more submissive female in with Little Boy and let them be together, and then eventually let the larger male in with them as well too. So we'll keep our fingers crossed.
When you said that they're sharing a wall, do you have some way of keeping them from getting a paw through?
No, they actually can, and but the other one can get away. So it's not like if they do get a paw through, they may swat, but the other one can get away so that there's no risk of a major injury. And I think having some type of tactile contact between the two is important, because I've seen when you have, at least with primates, when you do introductions where they can't physically touch each other, sometimes the aggression's worse because they get so built up that they want to let out that aggression, that when you do finally put them together, they can be a little overly aggressive. So I think having the ability to put a paw through isn't necessarily a bad thing, as long as the other one on the other side can get away.
Okay. You guys, I don't think at Black Beauty ever had big cats before, like, the last couple of years. Is that correct?
I believe, now I've been there 2.5 years, but I believe historically they've had a couple of cougars, which are kind of medium-sized, but they've never had large cats like tigers or lions or jaguars or anybody like that. And so now we currently have 4 tigers, and that's, I think that's pretty new for this ranch, so we're excited about that.
And I'm going to try and show some of those pictures if you would like to talk about how that change came about and why you guys are taking on some of the most dangerous animals in the world.
Sure. What do we think we're getting into? Yeah. So it all started about 2 years ago. We got a call. Well, being a part of the Humane Society of the United States, they have their own animal rescue team that goes out and does seizures or works with local governments to take animals in when they've been seized or confiscated by the local state departments. And so we got a call that we needed to take these guys in, and could we hold them temporarily? Was that even a possibility for us? And we found out that, well, we could get temporary enclosures built and, you know, take them in temporarily, but why not look at the big picture and possibly take in these guys permanently? Because, as you know, Carole, there is such a need for tiger sanctuaries, reputable big cat sanctuaries. You know, there's only so many of us across the country, so there's always space. Not too many animals and not enough space. So we took in these first 3, 2 males and a female, and they were in very substandard enclosures. It was in Mississippi at a roadside zoo, and these are the pictures that you can see. This top one here is their original caging. It was just mud and dirt. There was very little shelter, no enrichment. Their diet was very poor. They just got raw chicken, and that was it. There was no type of supplements or proper diet, and they were very unhappy, very aggressive, very scared. And so our animal rescue team, and then some of us from Black Beauty. Sorry, go ahead.
How big is this cage here? And are you seeing the same?
I'm really bad with measurements. Yes, I'm seeing that that's their original cage that they were in at the roadside zoo. It was maybe 15 by 15. Again, I'm really bad with estimates of size, but it was tiny. These are the 2 females that lived together. We named them Anastasia and Natalia, and they were just very aggressive towards each other. We were told they were sisters from the same litter. They had no space to get away, so they were constantly pacing the fence. And when they would turn a corner and meet the other, they would, you know, growl at each other and jump up and be aggressive, and then go right back to pacing the fence. So yeah, it was not a good situation. There was also a male who we named Gustavo, who was in an even smaller cage. In fact, he must have been put in that cage when he was small, because when we had to dart him and take him out, the doorway was too small. We actually had to cut the enclosure open to get him out, because there was no way for him to get out due to his size.
Oh my goodness. Talk about a ship in a bottle.
Yeah, that's another picture there of the 2 females in their cage. It looks like they just had one small platform, and that was also their shelter. You know, they had a couple of tiny den boxes, but it was not an appropriate enclosure for them. They were also extremely obese. You know, all 3 of them were very overweight.
You know, I hear people say all the time, I saw these cats at this little nasty roadside zoo, but I think they must be taking care of them because they were really overweight, and they don't realize it's from such a bad diet and such a lack of exercise.
Yes, exactly. They're like big couch potatoes because they can't go anywhere and they have nothing to do. So I can't imagine how hard that is for an animal that spends no time being idle. It's amazing.
Well, this is an exciting picture. What is this?
Well, so we took the cats in, and then about a year later, we get another call. Hey, we have this other tiger in Kansas. Somebody owns him as his private pet, but he's kind of abandoned the property, and so we don't know if he's getting fed. We don't know what's going on. There were other cats, bobcats, lynx, and other species, and so again, HSUS got involved, and the courts revoked custody of these animals, and so we agreed to take the tiger, and his name is Alexander, and so he's also here with us. So we currently have those 4 tigers. The picture here is kind of an artist rendering of our expansion that we're working on. We were really excited to get funding to build phase 1 of this facility, which is the top section. It's a building that has the lockouts, or the night rooms for the cats, and then they open up into large multi-acre enclosures for them with natural vegetation, trees and grass and rocks and water ponds or water features in them, so that the tigers can free roam pretty much for the first time in their lives. They'll have about 3 acres together, all included. So we're really excited. The construction has begun on this to build phase 1, and we're hoping that it will be finished by the first part of 2014.
Now, you said you were happy to get the funding for this. How do you guys manage your funding? It seems like HSUS is kind of the umbrella organization, and then the fund has these wildlife centers underneath that. Does each wildlife center raise its own funds and have its own set of donors, or how do you guys how do you raise the money to take care of the animals at each of your facilities?
That's a great question. While we are kind of under that umbrella of HSUS and the Fund for Animals, we still have fundraising goals that we have to go out and meet, not only for operational expenses but also for these type of projects. So if we want to build these large multi-acre spacious enclosures for our big cats or for our primates, which is another one we hope to start in the next couple years, we are responsible for going out to get the majority of that funding. So sometimes people often think that we have it easy because we're overseen by large organizations, but it's not the fact. We're actually trying to get funding just like all the other sanctuaries out there.
And do you do this through direct mail, or do you have events, or is it a combination of these things, or are you involved in any of that, or do you just do the animal care part of it?
I try to stay just working with animal care, but as you know, with any nonprofit, you kind of wear many different hats. So while our director, Ben Callison, he does most of the fundraising, we have events. We have 2 open houses every year, one in the spring and fall, and they're 2 back-to-back Saturdays that we are open to the public, and we let people come in and they get structured tours. We have a bus tours, and we have hayride tours all over our 1,300 acres. We also have other events like fundraising dinners. We did dinner in the woods this year where we had set up tents and lights and had live music and wine tasting and a nice vegan dinner to fundraise for this facility. And so we have people that come in, and we charge a certain amount per plate and try to get people to support us. And so we have these individual fundraising opportunities throughout the year, in addition to direct mailing that we do and the normal channels.
What is a current day in your life like? You get up in the morning and do what?
Normal day is coming in and kind of checking in with all of the departments. The way we're divided up is we have, with the number of species that we have over 40, and that includes equine, which is our #1 species. We have over 500 horses and donkeys, and they free roam on most of our properties. So we have an equine team that just cares for the horses and donkeys. And then we have our non-human primate team. We have primates that have been rescued from biomedical research, and so we have that group. And then everybody else is kind of lumped into our wildlife department, and that includes our big cats, our exotic antelope, farmed animals, reptiles from the pet trade, all sorts of species. And then we have our wildlife department. So I'm responsible for making sure that, 1, that the animals have what they need, and then 2, that the people that care for them have what they need. So I come in, check with the different departments, make sure that everybody's doing okay, put out any fires that need to be put out. And then a lot of my day is doing administrative stuff. You know, it's kind of a challenge. You know, we get into this field because we love working with animals, but you know, we have to do some of the office work too. So sometimes you find yourself stuck at a desk longer than you'd want to. But we have the benefit of, if we get at a stopping point, we can go step out and go talk to a big cat if we want to, or go see how the chimpanzees are doing. Or so those are the pluses of my day. But yeah, we work with our vet team. We have a full-time veterinarian. We also have a fully staffed, fully equipped hospital, which we're really excited about. That was another recent construction that we just finished this year. And so we had, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, we used to have elephants here. And when our last elephant passed away about 3 years ago, we realized that there are other sanctuaries that do a better job than we could do with elephant care. They have a lot more space, and they're specifically dedicated to elephants. So we turned our old elephant building into our hospital, and so we have a veterinarian and vet tech, and they are responsible for caring for all of our animals' medical needs. So we're really excited about that.
Given the size that an elephant barn has to be, I would imagine that was a really nice sized clinic.
It is. In fact, we're only using half of it right now. We've got half of it built out, and the other half, we call it just shelf space for future expansion if we ever need it. But we have a equine suite where we have standing stocks that the horses can come in and get any treatment that they need, and then we have a large animal exotic suite where we can do surgeries or procedures on cats or primates or anybody else that needs it. We have a full lab, we have a full pharmacy, and lots of fun equipment to play with, like x-ray machines and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, our vet team is very excited with the hospital. I've worked in sanctuaries, you know, for many years, and I've never seen a vet hospital this fancy schmancy. So we're really excited about it.
I haven't been to Black Beauty in, gosh, probably like 8-9 years, and I am so looking forward to going back out there and seeing some of the wonderful things that you guys have done. And for me, the cat hospital, well, all hospitals to me are cat hospitals, but to me the hospital is like, it's the crowning glory of it. You really want that to be nice.
It's the showpiece. We're really excited about it. And that, yeah, and we got that as a large donation as well too. We have a wonderful donor who has always supported the ranch, and she came out a couple years ago, and we were talking about this is what we wanted to fundraise for, and her father was a veterinarian, and she said, I know how important it is, and she said, here you go, here's what'll help get this started. And so we named the hospital after her father. So we are so grateful for all of our donors and our members. Just so grateful.
It really is a huge team effort. It's not just the people who work at the sanctuary, it's all of those people who donate, whether it's a small amount or a huge amount. It all is what saves all of those lives out there.
Mm-hmm. It is. And, you know, I'm sure you've had this happen too. I know at Wildlife Rescue we would have people drop off injured animals, a baby bird or you know, some other type of species, and the mother would have her kid with her, and the little kid would pull out change out of his pocket, you know, to say, here, take this. And it just really touches your heart that even little kids get it. They get the importance of what we're doing, and gives you kind of hope for the future that maybe that's the next group that's going to come through and take over doing what we do.
Absolutely. All right, are you seeing this building that I'm seeing? It says Wildlife Operations Center. Is this part of the artist rendering?
Yes, that's just yeah. Yes, so that's what the front of the building's going to look like. And it looks like he even drew in a little tiger there on the right. So. But it's just the building that will hold like the kitchen or the storeroom and the walk-in coolers and freezers for the meat, and then the individual bedrooms or lockouts that we'll have for each cat, so that when they come in to feed each day, they'll get fed individually so we can monitor how much they're eating, and then they'll come in at night or during bad weather, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what that building is, and that's actually the expanded version. This is being built in phases because it would cost way more than what we have. So yeah, that's phase 1 and 2 combined. So, and then this next picture is the picture of the tigers when we release them into their temporary enclosures. What we have for them now is still small by our standards. They're temporary enclosures. We will use them for quarantine once these guys have moved over. But we had literally 2 weeks to get something built, and so we built these structurally sound enclosures that have a separate lockout so that we can go in and clean on the other side while the cats are locked out. But this was still three to four times bigger than what they currently had, so we were excited for that. So we're looking forward to moving them into their large enclosure as well. But for now, they're safe and sound in these temporary enclosures.
And maybe one of the most important things to note here is I saw the conditions where one of your tigers came from in Kansas, and not only are these larger
Yes.
than where these cats were, they are so much safer than where these cats were.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. You probably saw the pictures of the lock. It literally, the enclosure was locked with just like a little carabiner clip. It wasn't even secured with a padlock. It was scary, and it looked like the fences they were just, cheap chain link fence, and they were just tied together. It wasn't even bolted or locked together. It was so scary to see it. And when Alex came to us, the one from Kansas, he was coated in mud, just covered in mud all over his belly, because that's what he was living in. And it was just so, he didn't leave the grass for, I'd say, a good 2 weeks. He just slept in the grass. He rolled around in the grass. He ate the grass. He just, that was it. He was just so happy. And, eventually all the mud and stuff kind of fell off as he groomed himself. But yeah, it was hard to see where he came from.
And I think referring to it as mud is really being kind, because when my daughter was sending me, she was texting me pictures because she was there, and I was like, man, you guys are up to your ankles in mud. And she said, Mom, that is not mud. That was years of
That's true. That's a very good point. Mud and other things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, it was really bad.
Made me glad we did not have smell-o-vision on this end.
That's for sure. Yep, definitely.
So who is this handsome boy?
So this is a picture of Gustavo. This is Gustavo. He's our largest male. He was from the original seizure in Mississippi, and he was extremely obese. I think our veterinarian estimated him close to 600 pounds.
Wow.
He was massive. And he had joint issues. You could just tell it was just hard for him to get around. And the first 2 weeks or so that we had him here, he just stayed in his den. It was February, so it was a little cool. Nothing different than what they lived in from Mississippi to Texas. But we built these insulated dens for him, and he just stayed in that den. He would not come out. I think he was just happy to have some place to get away, because in his last enclosure, he literally couldn't get away. He couldn't get away from people. And so here he could go hide in his den. We could still peek in and make sure he was doing okay, and he'd come out to eat. But I think he just liked that security. And still to this day, he prefers to stay inside and sleep during the day, and then, in the afternoon and the evening, even though we're not open to the public, he still likes to kind of stay hidden. And I feel so bad because he never had that opportunity where he was before that. So, but he's a sweetie. He loves his big jolly balls. You have those big massive balls, and we even had some left over from our elephant that were even bigger, and he just loves those. He will just bat those around and jump on them and play with them, and he's a sweet boy.
Those elephant balls weigh like 90 pounds apiece because they have like a 4-inch sidewall, and those cats knock them around like they were balloons.
Yeah. I know, it's amazing. It was amazing. They are so strong and so massive, and it kills me that people think that these guys would make good pets. I just don't get it. It's crazy.
Well, I guess this picture here is why people think they would be good pets.
Yes, don't they look cute? This is one of our females, and she's, again, just rolling in the grass, just happy to have something other than mud and feces to lay in. So I believe this is Anastasia. It's hard to tell without seeing the face close up, but she's our shy girl. She's very affectionate, and that was another thing. They were so aggressive when we seized them, and of course they were scared having all these people come in and sedate them and bring them out. But just even when you walked in the beginning to see them, they were just so aggressive and so unhappy. And to think that this place was open to the public every day and just people would come in and stare at them and they didn't have any place to get away. So I understood why they were so aggressive. But we brought everybody back, and of course they were scared for the first few days. But now to see these guys, their personalities have come out, and you see the individual personalities that these guys have and how affectionate they are to each other. And right now the girls are together. Our males are still separated because, as you know, it's hard to put adult tigers together. But they just, they interact with people. They're not frightened anymore, and it's just so rewarding to see them. And this is, I believe, the other female here, Natalia, and she's just laying in the grass, just happy and relaxed.
I know when you guys did that Mississippi rescue, there was a lot of angst because it was a situation where it was an emergency. The animals needed to be rescued right away, but there was this ongoing lawsuit, and there was so much concern that what if these people actually win the lawsuit and the animals have to go back? How do you deal with something like that? Can you tell me what that was like emotionally for you during that period of time?
Well, and we're still dealing with it. This has been in the courts it'll be going on 2 years in February, and they still have not relinquished custody. The state of Mississippi, the Parks and Wildlife Department of Mississippi is still in the courts with the owner. So we technically do not have ownership of these animals. And so for that matter, we are limited on what we can do for them. Obviously we're going to make sure they have what they need, but if there's any other procedures or exploratory work or anything that we need to do for these cats, like for example, the male is still still intact because we can't alter him until we have custody. So it's very challenging. I mean, we just live our days assuming that we're going to get custody because we don't want to think about the alternative. I mean, I can't even imagine us giving them back. It's just sending them back to where they came from, just to me, is not an option. We have to keep fighting. And our legal department is working and trying to get court dates set up, and it's just the owners are still fighting it. And I'm not sure why at this point, but yeah, it's very frustrating.
So many times we will send out an alert to our people, and I'm sure this happens for you too, year after year after year, asking for their support to get a bill passed or to do something like save Tony the truck stop tiger. And people say, why can't you get this done? And it's like, nobody wants this to get done any more than the sanctuaries involved, because we don't want to have to keep coming to you year after year after year. We just want to get these issues dealt with, and it's really frustrating.
Yes, it is so frustrating, and I think people they need to get involved. They need to get involved with their own state legislation and just get these bills passed. I know this year I've never been an outspoken advocate. If somebody asks me my opinion, I will of course tell them very firmly that wild animals do not make good pets, but I've never really spoken out before. And this year I had the opportunity of going to our state legislation committee and discussing this with them, because we were trying to get a bill passed to prohibit exotic primate and big cat ownership in the state of Texas. And if you know anything about Texas, it is a very conservative state, and they don't take kindly to liberals or people that want to come in and change these type of laws. So unfortunately the bill didn't go very far, but I was really proud of myself because I was able to go and speak up as somebody who has to care for these animals year after year and just see where they come from, and that the fact that even though we do give them large spacious enclosures, we could give them 20 acres of space, but it still doesn't mimic what they would have in the wild. It still doesn't give them the freedom that they deserve, and they never asked to be born into the pet trade. They never asked to be in a roadside zoo. And I just wish people would get involved and take that step to talk to their congressman, to talk to their senator, and say, we don't want this. We don't want people to have big cats in their backyard. We see the incidence of people getting hurt with big cats and with primates. Every year we always hear about all these cases. And how far does it have to go before we step up and say, you know, these guys don't belong in a cage. They belong in the wild.
I'm so glad to hear that you are speaking up politically, because if there's anything that I've learned in the last 20 years, it is that if I had to do this all over again, I would not have rescued the first cat. I would have gone straight into changing the laws, because that's what will save thousands of these animals from the horrid conditions that sanctuaries have to rescue them from.
Yep. Yep. As you know, there's not enough space for all the cats that need homes and or sanctuary. And, you know, there's a statistic out there that we all share, but I don't know if the public realizes this, but there's more tigers in captivity just in the state of Texas than there are left in the wild. And that's ludicrous. I can't believe that we have that many tigers in captivity, and the fact that there's virtually, you know, that these animals could go extinct because of what we're doing. And you know, that goes into a whole nother topic of conservation and habitat protection and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, keep these animals in the wild. That's where they belong.
I think that's one of the most frustrating hurdles that we run into when we are speaking out for these animals politically, is that our opponents, the people who are breeding tiger cubs and lion cubs so that people will pay to have their pictures made with them, they're saying to the people that they're charging money, oh, this is conservation and you're helping protect these tigers for future generations, and this is, your money is going to conservation. And people want to believe that. They want to believe I can pay $25, have my picture made with a cub, and I'm saving tigers at the same time. And it's not true. It's just not true.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I remember when I graduated college the second time with my degree in wildlife and fishery sciences, as a reward, I went to Australia for a vacation. And I look back on this, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I was all excited because I got my picture taken holding a koala. And, you know, I thought this was so great, and this is, you know, this is what I want to do. And it wasn't until working with Lynn Cuny at Wildlife Rescue that I came to the realization that, you know, that's not the way it should be. You know, I should never want to have my picture taken with this animal, because it's not right. This animal obviously does not want to sit on my lap while his picture's taken. You know, he deserves to be in a tree eating eucalyptus leaves his whole life. So, you know, we criticize people that do that sometimes, but we have to, you know, realize that they haven't been enlightened. And so I think it's our job as working in this field to enlighten people and hopefully expand the awareness that yes, sitting with a tiger cub is not conservation. You're not doing anybody any favors except for that roadside zoo that is getting the money for that. And you and I both know there's places close to us, and there's places in Oklahoma that I visited just to see how bad they are. And I'm just amazed that for a certain amount of money you could play with a baby tiger. And I would see these parents that would let their kids run up, and they thought that was amazing to play with a baby tiger. And I just cringe. It's just so hard to watch.
It really is hard to believe that in today's time and era that people aren't better informed. You could understand it before the internet and before these wonderful documentaries about how these animals live in the wild maybe, but now that information is so easily accessible that it just baffles me that there is still a market for cub petting and for swimming with tigers and for all of those crazy things that these breeders and dealers are doing with them.
Yep. And well, you see, I mean, I think until we limit the amount of wildlife used on TV and in the movies, I think that's probably a good way to start, because when people stop seeing animals objectified on a car commercial where they have a baby chimp running around, or a fast food commercial where they have a tiger sitting on a table, which I just saw recently for I think it was Subway or some fast food where they had a tiger sitting next to this girl in the library, and you know, until we can stop doing that, then maybe people will stop objectifying these animals as exciting, or, you know, start respecting them for the animals that they are.
You know, something that really upset me recently was there was this movie Life of Pi, and I thought, wow, this is wonderful because they're using CGI, computer-generated images, instead of the real cats. And people were asking me, is this something that I should patronize? And I said, yes, I think it's a great idea because they're using CGI, and they had said that they had used some live animals, but that they had done that to force the CGI illustrators to really do such a good job that you couldn't tell the difference between the live cats and the CGI cats. And then I find out that the cat nearly drowned. One of the cats nearly drowned. That was a real cat who was on the set. And it was like, well, even that was a bad thing for me to be promoting or to spend my money to go out to see that.
Yeah, I read that too. It's sad because you want to promote the things that are doing good or doing what we believe in, and then you find out that no, it never happened. I read that article as well too. It's very sad.
Man. You had mentioned Texas law, and we have an intern here, Valerie, who is from Texas, and she did a great chart for me that showed all of the different counties, and you guys have like 300 counties or something. And Texas law says that there's no state rule about how big cats have to be kept, that it's left up to the counties. And so what has happened by default is the counties don't want to deal with it, and they've put the sheriffs involved of enforcing it. And the sheriff's like, I got enough on my plate. I don't want to be dealing with lions and tigers. So they just seem to turn a blind eye to what's going on with these animals. And yet, if you were to go to your state legislature like you've been doing, they'll say, well, we've already got a rule in place. That rule is not working, and that's why we really need this federal ban, H.R. 1998 and Senate Bill S. 1381, that would ban the private possession of these animals across the board, across the entire United States, so that you don't have these little pockets of different rules that apply to different people, and then they just bounce around. It's like whack-a-mole. They keep moving around from one place to another to evade the law.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, Texas, the rule that we do have says that if in the counties where it's legal, you have to be permitted. You have to get a permit. So when we did that, we went to our local government and said, or our county government and said, okay, we're here to fill out that permit application, and they had absolutely no idea what we were talking about. And so we had to instruct them on what paperwork we needed to fill out, and we found the form, filled it out, and took it to them and said, here you go, now you are supposed to come inspect us. And they said, oh, okay. So they came out a few weeks later and inspected us, and they were like, we don't really know what we're looking for, but okay, you passed, here's your permit. And so you're right, it's not working. And when I spoke to the committee in the House that was trying to pass this, I knew that our shots were our chance was shot when I go up to talk about it, and one of the committee members says, I've always wanted to own a tiger. And I thought, well, we have no chance, and you know what, to get this done. So but if we keep bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up, you know, eventually somebody has to listen to us. HSUS is fortunate that they have state directors in each of almost all of the states in the U.S. And so that state director will help pass bills or try to get support for these bills. And so our state director, Katie Jarl, is excellent in trying to get these type of measures brought up, and she's diligent. She'll keep fighting for it. So it's an uphill battle for her, at least being here in Texas, but I'm glad that we have people out there that are doing that type of work.
I think it's such an important state for us to get under control, because between Florida and Texas, it used to be Florida, Texas, and Ohio, and then Zanesville happened in Ohio, and now thankfully Ohio has some of the toughest laws in the entire nation. Florida law is Florida law. There's a constitutional it's a constitutional amendment that occurred back in the 40s, I believe, that gave all power over wildlife to the Fish and Wildlife Commission. And those are people who are made up of all hunters, and a lot of them like to hunt at these canned ranches, which are the zoo surplus animals. So they don't want to hear anything about protecting animals in Florida. And Texas, I think, is the other huge state where there's so much of this breeding and dealing going on. Plus, its border on Mexico really concerns me. We've seen that they're selling tiger cubs across the Texas-Mexico border, and I'm sure an awful lot more of that happens than what we're ever able to catch. So I think Texas is such an important state to rein in. We'll help you in any way that we can.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and it goes across not only just big cats, but you're talking about monkeys. I mean, you can go online today and buy a monkey for $5,000, no problem. But it's exotic hoof stock. I mean, we took in recently a scimitar horned oryx from somebody who raised him as a pet, and then realized that, well, perhaps maybe they don't make good pets. But they were offered, I think, they told us that they were offered $15,000 for that oryx, so that they could kill him and put him on their wall. And oryx are extinct in the wild, so the only time you're going to see a scimitar-horned oryx is in captivity. And so we were more than happy to take this oryx in and introduce her into the rest of our antelope and deer herd. So, but it's, it crosses over from cats to primates to antelope to basically any exotic animal. I mean, you can go to the pet store and buy a hermit crab, I mean, for $5 at Christmas time. And, it's just, we have to stop thinking of animals as property and think of them as individuals. And I think that will help. Once you make that association that that animal is an individual and they are a sentient being, then I think you'll stop seeing them objectified as property and traded and purchased and sold and killed and all of that.
I think you're right, and I think sometimes working within a sanctuary really wakes you up to that, because you see these animals every single day of their life bored out of their minds. And for us, that's one of the most difficult parts of our job, is trying to figure out, what can we do for the cats today to entertain them? I don't even know how you would do it at a facility like yours where you have such a broad array of animals. Maybe they entertain each other. But it's just, it's
well, and you find that if you give them more space, that they can, you don't have to do as much enrichment. Coming from wildlife rescue, where our primates would have an acre of space for their whole group, they would live as natural as possible. They would form their family groups. They would forage in the trees. They would, do all the stuff that a wild monkey would do. We would still provide enrichment because, like I said, no matter how big that cage is, it's still a box that they live in 365 days a year, and the view never changes. So we would still do enrichment, but I think giving them more space helps too, because they can entertain themselves more. If they're in a tiny box like these roadside zoos, they don't have anywhere to go. They just sit, and that's, like you said, that's when they gain weight and they have all sorts of health issues because they're not exercising, they're not stimulated in any way.
I know you were worried about whether or not you could talk for an hour, and we're down to our last 7 minutes. So in the last 7 minutes, could you tell me where you see yourself maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
Wow, that's tough, because I never thought I'd be in this position. When I graduated from college the first time, I thought, oh, I got a degree, now what do I do? And I just went and got a job, and now I'm actually doing what I love to do, and that's what I always tell new graduates or kids that are trying to figure out what they want to do, is do what makes you happy, because you don't want to work for 30, 40 years and then look back on it and think, what did I just do? I wasted my life. So for the future, I know I'll still be in this industry, but I have no clue where the future holds. I will stay here at Black Beauty until I feel that there's no more that I can do. Then I'll move on to another organization, hopefully. I just keep options open, and as long as I can help animals, I'm happy, whatever type of role that turns into.
I think it's kind of funny that you mentioned the moving from organization to organization, because one of the things that I have found truly interesting, or it may be even difficult, is to keep track of who's working where, because it's like I know all these same people who love animals, and this year they're at HSUS, and next year they're at IFAW, and the following year they're at Born Free, and they keep changing their email addresses, but it's the same people working in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps, though, because it kind of gives a cross-pollination into organizations so that they can all learn from each other, and that has been truly beneficial. I know from the issue of big cats that having the coalition that includes the Humane Society of the United States and the International Fund for Animal Welfare and the World Wildlife Fund and Born Free and the Animal Legal Defense Fund and all of these huge organizations working together for one common purpose, which is to end the trade in big cats, man, is that ever helpful to have all those people know each other and work well together.
It really is, and I think the more time we spend working together as opposed to working apart, we're going to reap the rewards of that, because you see a lot of times with different organizations, they have the same goals, but they go about it differently, and then they don't often work together. And I think we kind of have to drop our egos and realize that we have to work together, because we do all have the same goals. We may go about it a little bit differently, but we want to end up at the same spot. So yeah, when you hear people griping about one organization versus another, we need to realize that we're all there for the same purpose. So yeah, and I think working in different organizations really helps that, because it does merge, because you take the best of what you have at your current organization and you take that wherever you go. And so, like you said, it's cross-pollination to the other organizations. I know when I came from wildlife rescue, I was happy to take everything I learned and apply it here, and then I picked up what was good from this organization and put that together. So it just makes this place even stronger, because we're using the best from both places.
I think that's probably especially true whenever you're talking about sanctuaries, because there are, people who start sanctuaries for the first part are pretty hard-headed, driven individuals that don't deal well with outside advice. So it's really helpful when you can get those kind of people that actually work together and share ideas and share resources. Like just recently there was another sanctuary that had some staffing issues, and so we were able to send some of our staff up there, and I know that they would do the same thing for us. And so this kind of communication is something that we've never had before, and I'm so happy to see us all utilizing it.
Yeah, I agree. We're working with the Born Free Primate Sanctuary as well as Wildlife Rescue, and trying to create some mutual aid agreements so that we can help each other out should a natural disaster occur, an emergency occur. That way we can help each other with supplies or people or information. So I think that's good, building those networks together. I think it would be a great idea if we had a big cat network of all the top reputable sanctuaries that would work together and share ideas, share policies, procedures, just to help everybody, because nobody can do it all. Nobody's perfect in every single aspect. And if I can learn something from somebody else, I'm excited, because that means I don't have to research it and do the work myself. I can just borrow what they had. And so I think I would like to see us have a big cat network. I know the primate sanctuaries have done that. We have NAPSA, which is the North American Primate Sanctuary Alliance, and it's 8 of us, mainly just chimp sanctuaries, but that have gotten together and are working together to improve primate sanctuaries all over the country.
I think those things are finally starting to gel within the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, that there's a lot more of that sharing that's going on with accredited sanctuaries. But I agree that there are some things that are really not pertinent to an equine rescue if you're rescuing big cats. And so having those groups by species, I think, is also very, very helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And I think GFAS is great. I've really enjoyed that.
Yes, they've been wonderful. We love the resource that they have been for us. Well, Noelle, I am so pleased that you were able to take some time away from your very busy schedule and join us today on Cat Chat. You can join us here on the Cat Chat Show every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Just go to catchatshow.com to get the past episodes and to get links to our upcoming episodes on Google+. This has been a Google Hangout. I'm Carole Baskin. Bye-bye.